Okay, so let's talk about roll-up summary fields. Well, Murat was kind of leading us in this direction, but a roll-up summary field is the flip side of a cross-object formula. In a cross-object formula, we go up from the child to the parents. In a roll-up summary field, we are on the parent performing calculations on the related children. Okay? There's a number of different types of calculations that you can perform. The first is you can calculate the count, in other words, the number of children. So this one is just if I have a job application and 4 related reviews, count returns 4. Okay. There's the sum, the min, and the max. The sum is where you, in all 3 of these cases, you specify a specific numeric field that you would like to calculate. Return the sum of all the field values here, return the smallest one, or return the highest one. Okay? Now, there's a filter criteria when you're setting up one of these things, and the filter criteria is where you can specify exclude certain records. So you could come up with some logic that says, you know, if the I don't know, if the status is equal to close, then don't include this in the calculation or something like that. So something so that this only applies to a subset of the children. Okay, a subset of the children. All right, so that's what that filter is for. So where do you create roll-up summary fields? Where the place that you create roll-up summary fields is in your parent in a master detail relationship. So here's the job application, and what we can do is we can calculate a new field of type roll-up summary that'll operate on my related list of reviews. Okay? And so what we can do is we can click Next here. So demo relation, okay. And then here is where we specify, well, what's the child object that we want to operate on? We can calculate, like I said, the count, and then if we select one of these fields to aggregate, sum, min, max, we need to specify, well, what's the actual field that you want me to calculate? Okay. So in this case here, experience, this is a score between 1 and 5 that a user would assign to a candidate. We will sum up all of the experience scores for all the related reviews associated with this job application. Okay? And then we can apply the filters. We can come out here and essentially say that only certain, only people, how about only where recommended for hire equals true or something like that. Only apply this calculation to those reviews. Okay? All right. Big caveat. This only works in master detail relationships. So this is another reason as to why you'd want to do master detail, is because it's an added feature, is the ability to do roll-up summaries is only available in master detail relationships. Okay? So, all right. Lookups, you don't have this available.
Because not every child has a parent in lookups. That's probably why we cannot do it.
It's also true of master detail. So a parent in a master detail relationship may or may not have children. So the optionalness is universal in either situation from the perspective of the parent. Whether it's a lookup or a master detail, the parent may or may not have any associated children. It's from the perspective of the child. In a lookup, the parent is optional. In a master detail, the parent is required. Okay, must have a parent.
So what's the difference between this and a formula field? We can do this in a formula field.
It's two entirely different perspectives. The roll-up summary field is a calculation on the children. A formula field is where we're referencing the parents. So let me go back here to this slide just to kind of point out the difference here. So here's my master detail relationship. If I have a formula field and it does a cross-object reference, it would be on the review, because the review is the child and the job application is the parent. If I'm doing a roll-up summary, the roll-up summary would be on the job application, aggregating numeric values on the children associated with that parent. So they're two entirely different directions. Cross-object formula fields refer to parents. Roll-up summaries refer to children. Okay. All right, so let's talk about our last topic for the day, which is going to be validation rules. All right. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I did not, my bad. One of the things that Murat was asking about was, well, when are these things calculated? And it's an important question because there's two different answers. In the case of a cross-object formula field, it's not really calculated until it's viewed. So it's sort of a, don't think of a, the cross-object formula is something that when you access it, it'll get the latest value and perform the calculation there. Now, a roll-up summary field is the opposite of that, which is to say, if you change a score in one of your reviews, that will make a change to the job application and update. It'll recalculate that job application field. Okay? One of the things that we do is we can actually test this by checking to see, you know, we create things like triggers and so on, but you know, think of the roll-up summary field. A change to the child applies a change to the parent. In a formula field, a change to the parent does not modify the child. Okay, so it's not like the reference candidate name being changed from, you know, some name to another change. That does not apply a change to the child.
When we open the form, it will be changed.
What was that?
When
Now,
you open the form?
yeah, now that next time you access it, in terms of viewing it or running a report or whatever the case may be, it'll get the latest value when you request it, when you view it. But once again, that's not a change to that record, really. Okay?
There is no field kept in the database for the formulas.
Exactly. Great point. So there's kind of a difference here. The formula field is the value of the formula is not stored on the record. It just has the formula which goes out and gets whatever it is and evaluates at view time. The roll-up summary field does store that value on it so that, you know, like I said, the change to the child enacts a change to the parent. So there's a difference in terms of the way that they behave. All right, validation rules. All right, so our final topic for today are validation rules. Validation rules allow us to do error checking or to define some sort of condition where we can prevent the write of the data to the database if it doesn't meet our criteria, or if it does meet our criteria, actually. So a classic thing is, you know, if a person selects the credit card number is MasterCard, and a MasterCard number has 16 digits, and the data entered in has 15 digits. Do not allow the record to be stored in the database. We can specifically create a validation rule that prevents that write from occurring. Okay? So a validation rule, it's going to contain a formula, and if the formula returns true, then that's our error condition. What we do is two things. We prevent the write to the database, and we display an error message to the end user. Okay? So now, validation rules are only fired upon an event in which we're changing the record that exists within the database. So a validation rule does not go out and sort of cleanse data that's already in the database. Okay? It's only when we update existing records that we will execute the logic associated with our validation rule. This is just a number of sort of random things associated with validation rules. We'll talk about record types later, but you can apply different validations to different record types. Record type is simply a piece of metadata associated with a record. It's another standard field. Like I said, it's a little bit too early to talk about this. We'll talk about it tomorrow. We'll talk about record types tomorrow. There's also a number of formula that are helpful associated with validation rules. Things like is changed, prior value, and is new. So we can do stuff where, you know, only execute this logic when it's a new record as opposed to when it is not a new record or something like that. Okay. I'll show you the UI in a second and how you create these things, but the error message, this is kind of a best practice. So try and be as, you know, when you're displaying error messages, be as specific to your end users as possible. Nothing frustrates an end user quite like getting the error message that says data not valid. You know. So if your formula is looking for, you know, can't be greater than 20%, just tell the end user can't be greater than 20%. So, all right. So let's take a look at what one of these things looks like, and then we'll get to create some. So validation rules are associated with objects. So if I click on candidate here, and I scroll down, there's a section called validation rules. Okay. Now I can create a new validation rule, or I can edit an existing one. So let's, why don't we create a new one here. So demo validation, okay. And then what I can do is write the formula that is the validation rule. Now in the case of a validation rule, it's going to need to evaluate to one of two things, true or false. So unlike a formula field that could return any number of different things, this can only return true or false, okay? Because it's a test condition. So it could be something like, you know, if I just go out here and select candidate and then say city equals, you know, actually insert operator in, yeah, city equals, that's one of the weird things. Okay, it's a single equal. So city equals San Francisco, you know, something like that. So if the city is equal to San Francisco, then this evaluates to true. Or, you know, if we had something else, gosh. Boy, none of these, yeah. None of these are too good, so I don't know. Years of experience. We could do something else. I'll talk about the ones that we do in the lab, which are a little bit more interesting. So anyways, you have your field that evaluates to a true or false, and then the error message. So this would be your detailed discount percentage cannot be greater than 20%. Okay, and then there's two options here. You can display the error message either at the page level or you can display it at a field level. So top of the page, or if we select a field, we can associate it with a specific field. Okay?
You can't do both?
No, it's one or the other. Yeah. So.
You can create two validations.
Now,
No?
yeah, they're going to. Trying to think of what happens when you have multiple validation rules that fire. Because when you do field level, I believe it says at the top, view the. Let's do this. So here, I'm going to just make sure this always evaluates. Let's see, I think this should work. So let's fire off our, so one thing to understand is that the validation rule, it's the true condition that is the error. Not intuitive in my opinion. Normally it's false is the error. In this case, a true evaluation is the error. So here, if I click on edit, now if I attempt to save this, oh, I'm getting another, I have multiple things queued up here. Let's see here. Script thrown exception. I probably got some stuff left over from my last class going on. Let me try something else here. So let's try the position. So let's say, let's do this actually. Name must not contain 9. Let's see, is this one active? So this was one I created. So here, and then let's make sure that it's associated with that field. And then now, if we go out and we create a position, and the position is test 9. And let's see here, new, and then job description, whatever. Let's try this again. So it does, even if you do field level, where we had our invalid position title because it doesn't contain it, it's not supposed to contain a 9. It displays at the top, review all error messages below. So. Okay.
Can you do regular expressions?
Yes, you can, but that we're calling that an advanced topic and doing it Wednesday. So.
If you had set top of the page, then it will write this in the bottom of error remote data. Role, right?
If you do, sorry, what was that?
If you selected top of the page.
Oh, top of page? I can quickly, yeah. So what happens when we do top of the page? So the good old name must not contain 9 rule. So top of page, positions, new position, test 9, it's new. So that's what it looks like. Okay. All right. So it's the true condition that your validation rule returns that will, like I said, that is your error condition. And then display a message, where you want to display it. But the rule, like mine, you can do a number of things, and this is really where the functions allow you, a lot greater flexibility, so you're not just checking to see if something equals something. But like I did down here, I use the contains function to check to see if the name field contains a 9 in this case. Okay. All right. All right, in the lab exercise, we're going to do something far more interesting from an example standpoint. So a validation rule requires that if someone gives a candidate a cultural fit score of less than 2, they must provide an explanation. So our rule is that if this is 2 conditions. By the way, if we want to create 2 conditions, there's the option of using the AND function. It's AND and then parentheses and then multiple commas are the things that we always want to occur. Not the prettiest thing in my opinion. So we have the option of doing, we could go like this, and like so, and then condition number 1 and then condition number 2, like that, okay? So that's one way of doing an AND. A much prettier way, in my opinion, is to do it this way, which is you can just do like that and then not do the AND. Those AND functions really get hard to read. Same thing with OR is double pipe. So in this case, it's, does it contain 9 and something else, okay? The other thing I'd recommend, this is just a piece of advice for those of you who are new to the formula functions. It can get a little bit squirrely in the sense that, if you have an if, and let's say that I have if, and then I, have this is my test, and then I want to do something like this where I go, okay, then return true, otherwise, then return, have another condition like this. It really helps when you're writing these things to do some carriage returns. So if that returns true, then do return true. Otherwise, evaluate the second thing. And then here you could do item number 2. And then so here, I keep doing you have to do the space, not the tab. So test number 2, comma, something else. So it's unfortunately, because these all evaluate to a single line of code, doing this sort of thing where you, break out the different nested functions using the spacing really helps a lot, and it will save the spacing for you. So when you see it, it won't look that pretty when you're viewing it, but when you click on the edit button again, it will retain the spacing so that it is more readable as you're editing it. The other recommendation I have for reading formulas is start from the inside out and work your way out. So it's find the innermost function and think about what that does and what it returns. Then go outwards in order to understand what the function is going to do. Because that way you can, in starting from the inside of the function, working your way out, you can narrow down and just focus on one thing at a time. Whereas if you go the opposite direction, outside in, it gets complicated because you need to keep in mind what all these other conditions are doing. So, all right. Okay. All right, so in the lab exercise, what we're going to do is we have multiple, so if the cultural fit score is less than 2 and there's no explanation, in other words, if explanation is empty, if it's null, then let's prevent the write from occurring, okay? And then requires people to fill in the reason recommended box if they, or I'm sorry, yeah, the text area for reason recommended if they check the recommend for hire checkbox. Okay? All right. Roger, are you my next, are you the next one up? Yep. The next, yeah, what is the purpose of a queue?
It's a way to have multiple people to own a record.
Exactly. So it's really, people kind of overthink it, I think. At the end of the day, it allows for multiple people to own a particular record. John, when is workflow triggered?
Workflow is triggered when a record is updated.
Yeah, or it's a little bit nitpicky, but updated or also inserted. We would say anytime there's a database write or save that occurs, that will then fire off the associated test of the entry criteria to see if the workflow rule fires on. Okay.
Isn't it dependent upon which option you chose?
Yeah.
Isn't there like 2 or 3?
Very good. Yeah. So, and then there was also the evaluation criteria. So every time it's created or edited, and then created or edited and did not previously meet the criteria. So you can actually control it that way. So, Kevin, give an example of a cross-object formula that we created today.
Sure. On the offer object, we put the full name, the first and last name of the person on there, and then also there was on the position title also we put on the offer object.
Great. Okay. Great. When writing a validation rule, developers must write the error condition formula and the blank. So, Carol?
To require field, that is true.
So the answer to this one is associated with a field. What else is there? The error message. Okay, so the error message that you would associate with that particular field. Chris, what are the 3 ways to make a field required?
The field level required checkbox.
Yep. Check the box for required on a field, also known as universally required.
The validation rule.
Create a validation rule. Very good. So create a validation rule that checks to see that there's a value for that field.
Workflow.
Not a workflow.
Page layout.
Page layout. Yeah. So it only applies to the page layout, but that's another place where we can require a value for a field is on the page layout. So 3 things on the field itself, on the object definition. Create a validation rule or page layout. Okay, very good. Anu, where can users go to find more information on creating formula fields and validation rules? Help, very good. And then my demo that didn't work. Let me try my demo that didn't work again. So here, if we go to, for instance, where's a formula field? Hello, formula field. I don't have any there. Oh, there we go, formula text. So if we edit this, and then here I click on resources on CRM community. Once you get the internet up and running, there's a whole bunch of content out there that's available to you for things like, if we go down here, 100 ways to use custom formula fields. So yeah, I know, great weekend reading. So the same thing goes for things like validation rules. So, Salesforce has been around for more than 10 years. A lot of people have been using this stuff and have some best practices. Okay? So head out to the community. All right? All right. Then, like I said, what we'll do is we'll call it a day and devote the rest of the evening to lab time. Okay?
For more information on Salesforce.com training and certification, please visit www.salesforce.com/training.